Hello, friends from around the state. Welcome back. It's 2026. How are we? Happy New Year! Or sometimes, as I've been saying, Happy New Year, I think. It's the 48th meeting of the Local Energy Resources Network, or LERN. I'm Angie Hacker. I'm your statewide best practices coordinator with the California Climate and Energy Collaborative, joined today by Rochelle on the SEEK team, and Kelsey will be here in a little bit. You can always reach out to them if you have any technical needs. So come on in, everybody, make yourself at home. As you're doing so, you can go ahead and I do love the people who are on camera. I like seeing you. But you can also just introduce yourself over chat if you're comfortable. Maybe you're like me in this new year, just kind of shaking out of your holidays with many new reasons to try to tackle our reliance on fossil fuels. So join me in this wild meeting we're about to have. We have so many opportunities to push your work forward. Okay, so as always, we like to spend a little over an hour once a month in these meetings that are designed to be a regular space for local governments and their friends, so those that work with them, to help each other learn about and inform available opportunities. So this is all about advancing your energy and climate goals. How can we help brief you on things that make that process easier? So I'll do what I always do. We're going to run through our opportunity roundtable, then we'll go to spotlights, and I have a bunch of them today and friends with me who are going to help me present with some funding opportunities, input opportunities that we want you to know about. So it's going to kind of go lightning round here for a bit. And then we have two featured discussions today because apparently I did some serious speaker hunting and we have a lot of topics to get through. Very fortunate today to be joined by Cal OES, Cal Fire representatives to talk about a wildfire mitigation program that is all around home hardening, financial assistance for home hardening, which I know that you all are interested in. And we also have Misty Bruseri, who many of you know. She's been our friend for a long time with California Local Energy Codes, giving us a bunch of top of the year code updates. Okay, so that's the plan for today. If you're just joining, go ahead and introduce yourself over chat. Say hello. We're a little family here. All right, let's go to our opportunity roundtable. So this is the ugly cheat sheet I like to offer every month with all the opportunities that I'm aware of. You will get access to all of this, so don't stress out about taking notes. Links are going to be dropped also in the chat. So I only highlight the things that are highlighted, meaning the things that are red are blue or yellow. The blue things are going to be things that we actually have spotlights about, which means I don't have to talk much about it. Somebody else will, and the yellow things are things I'll run through quickly that we haven't talked about before. On the left, sometimes we like to talk about things that are policy related because they often drive investment. And I know a lot of you all are kind of tracking Prop 4, right? Prop 4 was a $10 billion climate bond and a light at the end of a tunnel for some of us in terms of the funding landscape. It did get allocated dollars, it passed voters, it got allocated some appropriation last year for the first sort of tranche of programs. There was a legislative move recently, which people see as a good sign, which was just to, it's like an administrative fix to, it was AB 35. It's an exemption for the Administrative Procedure Act, which just means I think they're trying to reduce red tape to get the dollars out quickly this year. And so there's a couple things that are new. CNRA here has on the left, there's a link that we'll give to you. It's a Prop 4 tracker. And so that gives you an opportunity to see where all the funds are going with good links. It's dynamic, which I like. So I think it's getting regularly updated. But it doesn't, no, right now I haven't found anything that's showing us a time frame for any of these deployments of funding. So I think we're all just sort of monitoring for that. They're all just coming out from different agencies at different times. Some things have already made some moves. I still like to point people to this Nielsen-Merksimer Prop 4 detail allocation spreadsheet. So that's, if you just want a quick look at the dollar amount that's going to different agencies for different programs, that's where I would go. But I think you'll see in 2026 a lot of deployment of those funding programs through Prop 4. Okay. So on the left, also, there's a couple of blue items, legislative. I think those of you that are code people know that AB 130 passed last year. That's the code right moratorium, which many people are thinking about how to, proceed with. It's now in effect. Missy Brusteri is going to talk more about that later, as well as a bill proposed in the House in Congress, which is HR 3699, the Energy Choice Act, which could also have implications limiting local authorities. So more to come on that. And then we'll just take it from the top here on funding. I was very excited to see the CARB Planning and Capacity Building Project grants come out in December, due February 10th. I'm going to give you a spotlight on that next, so put a pin in that one. I also wanted to share with you a new opportunity I hadn't come across before. So there is a Megawatt Charging System 2025 Energized Incentive Processing Center grant due February 26th. It's from CEC through CalSTART. And so it's CEC funded, and it's to support large-scale deployment of ultra-high power charging for medium and heavy-duty electric vehicles, focusing on installing charging systems capable of delivering up to roughly 1 megawatt of direct current to trucks, buses, and other commercial vehicles. Those of you who are or are friends with your public fleet people trying to figure out how to adhere to the new advanced clean fleet mandates, this might be supportive of your charging efforts. This one has a $2.5 million per project award max, and there's $10 million available total. So they're big projects. Okay, I also have a friend here who is going to speak to us on this next one. That's the Cal OES Cal Fire Wildfire Mitigation Program. So we'll put a pin in that one for now, but it's an ongoing program. Those of you that are retrofit focused are going to be excited to hear. There's also a new program I hadn't come across before. This is the it's the Clean Energy Group's Technical Assistance Fund. So we're on to assistance now. This isn't direct grant funding, but this is sort of implementation support for community serving organizations interested in pursuing solar and storage by providing them with information about funding avenues and revenue streams, technology, siting, sizing, and configurations, and other project development guidance. So it's one-on-one support from CEG staff. And so things like past recipients have had help for community centers, emergency shelters, cooling centers, affordable housing, food pantries, fire departments, municipalities, and health clinics. So some free help. All right, the next one here I wanted to mention because I talked to one of you out there in the local ether about the CARB and CalSTART Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project. This is not new. So if you're like a fleet person, you probably know about HVIP. But I know that there's somebody new at LA County who's a very capable human being who's very interested in this program and has actually made some headway, I think, with CARB doing some carve out for public fleets in this program. And I just wanted to highlight, because I looked at it, that it's sort of rolling until the dollars are gone, and there's 5 million remaining reserved for public fleets right now. Again, if you're one of those advanced clean fleet people who would have to follow the regulations and the mandates that are coming. Okay, see, I told you this is going to be a lightning round. I think I've had a lot of coffee. We've got more. So this next one you're going to hear more about from Misty. So the CEC has some support, some guidance, and other help for local ordinance applications. So you'll hear a little bit more about that. I did want to put in a plug here under input opportunities just for us. SLEEK, State and Local Energy and Climate Coordination, our meeting will be this Thursday. That's January 15th. That's our quarterly meeting that got rescheduled from December. And I hope you will come. If you're able to make it, we have over 400 people registered for that quarterly series. And this will be the first meeting of the year where we are going to really dive into what we now know of our 2026 priorities. So 3 big priority areas, and we're going to form breakouts and consider that sort of the working group priorities for the year. A lot around affordability and decarbonization, grid integration, and grid reliance, DER integration, and then around streamlined funding and implementation support for all of this stuff. So we hear you, we're writing a report, we're going to share that working draft of the report with you, so please come. We would love your help this year coming up with really actionable solutions with our agency friends. Okay. Let's see here. The next one here, we're going to have a guest talking from CPUC about the Disadvantaged Community Advisory Group members. So that's an advisory group that will serve both CEC and PUC climate and energy related issues, and that's due on the 15th. You'll hear more about that in just a moment. You're also going to get a spotlight from SGC folks on affordable housing and sustainable communities. This is a gigantic investment that the state has made through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And so comments are due for round 10 on January 23rd. You'll hear more about that. And we also have a guest speaker who's going to talk to you about a natural catastrophe resilience study, which has a lot to do with wildfire. And so you have an opportunity to provide comment and input on the state's approach to that. That's coming too. All right. Last thing I wanted to mention is for those of you that are in the PG&E territory, there's a process the PUC has called the Climate Adaptation Vulnerability Assessment, CAVA. And some of the utilities are the ones that administer this process where they engage the community in trying to identify sort of vulnerabilities in the grid and how they can potentially, inform future investments to build energy resilience throughout California to the impacts of climate change. There's a local government study, so PG&E would like your input to help inform the early part of their engagement process, and it's specific to local governments. Okay. Wow, that was not short. Or like I said, if that was a lot, this is recorded, and you'll also get the slides and a bunch of resources afterwards. So this is the last thing I'm going to say for a little while. This is a spotlight. CARB was unable to, because this is a live solicitation, they didn't feel comfortable coming and speaking directly, but I wanted to share this with you because I'm excited. CARB has a new grant program, the Community Planning and Capacity Building Planning Grant. So I like it because it's sort of early stage capacity building, but it's really transportation focused. So if you're thinking about your climate action plan and the transportation needs, this might be something for you. $500,000 per project. The goal of it is to help communities plan for clean, equitable transportation solutions. These grants support early stage planning, outreach, workforce development, and local readiness, especially for tribal governments, rural communities, schools, and first-time applicants. So it's for different stages, but it includes early sort of community visioning, more developed projects. Might be useful for things like transportation needs assessments, clean mobility and land use planning, community engagement, community-led coordination. Anyway, the applications are due February 10th, and the funding period is supposed to go from May 4th to January 31st. And so local governments are eligible here to apply. Okay, I wanted to get that one on your radar because I thought it's just kind of unique. A lot of you are looking for more general capacity building. All right. Hey, we have such a good crowd today. Welcome, everybody. If you're new, just put yourself in the chat. Say hello. Who are you? Where are you from? Let's go to our next slide. Okay. So now I get to pass it off to a friend from the Strategic Growth Council, Brianna Lagosa. She's a senior planner and she's working on the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program. And one more plug here for this program. There's like more than $800 million that has gone into this sort of allocation from the state. And so it's recurring. And I just want it on your radar because if you're doing a climate action plan and it has anything to do with VMT, infill, or housing, you're going to want to know about this and maybe even work with folks to make sure your community gets an allocation. All right, Brianne, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Angie, for such a lovely introduction of the program. As Angie said, I'm Brianne Logasa. I'm a senior planner on the AHSC team, stands for Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities at the Strategic Growth Council. As Angie said, we fund infill, affordable housing, transportation, active transportation, and social programs, kind of transformative projects, with the main goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. And like I said, that includes land use changes, housing, transportation practices. We have this visual here to sort of show the kind of pinnacle AHSC project, which includes sidewalk improvements, bus shelters, affordable housing development, urban greening, and resident and business anti-displacement. Feel free to jump on to the next slide. I'm trying to keep this brief for you all. Just a quick note, this is a list of, not an exhaustive list, but a pretty comprehensive list of the things that we fund. And just to give a sense of kind of what we mean by transformative or large projects, we are looking for our projects a minimum of a $10 million request or a max of a $50 million request. So that is going to ultimately include affordable housing, either rental or ownership. It can include different housing related infrastructure, such as things that are needed for the condition of approval, factory built housing components, battery arrays, everything under the sun in terms of sustainable transportation infrastructure and different active transportation programs, tenant legal counseling, so on and so forth. I will say as a caveat though, for our tribal entities applying to this program, the minimum is 1 million as a request. So kind of try to lower the barrier there to apply if you, for tribal entities. All right, and next slide. As Angie mentioned, we are well into round 10 right now. We released our draft guidelines on December 19th and are soliciting public input. Our comments deadline is January 23rd, so there's still time to review our guidelines and submit some comments. And just to go over the overall timeline, we hope to adopt our final guidelines at our council meeting on February 25th, have the NOFA and application released in late February, early March, have applications due late April, early May, and eventually award in December 2026. This is, as I said, like a very complicated, large program. So if you're just learning about it now, just thinking about it, round 10 may not be kind of the right timing for you, but by the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and we do plan to see more funding in the future. So this fund won't be going anywhere. So it's time to start thinking about it. And that's it for me. Thanks. I'll put some links in the chat too for more information.
Thanks, Fran. And she'll stick around. If anybody wants to ask questions, you can do so in the chat and she'll respond. But take a look at that program. It is a beast to apply for because there's development involved. But I want it on your radar because it's one of the few gigantic sources that is recurring that can really help with emission reductions. Okay, let's go to our next speaker. So we have Zara Jamshed from the PUC. She's with the Energy Division and she's an equity analyst, and she's going to talk to us about an opportunity to apply to be on the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Committee. Go ahead, Zara.
Thank you, Angie. My name is Zara Jamshed. I'm an equity analyst with the CPUC and the CPUC liaison to the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group, or the DAC-AG. The DAC-AG was formed back in 2015 under SB 350 and is charged with advising both the CPUC and the California Energy Commission on clean energy and pollution reduction programs and policies. DAC-AG advocates on behalf of communities to ensure that as we move closer to reaching our state climate goals, that disadvantaged communities, including rural and tribal communities, are uplifted and prioritized. We're recruiting for multiple DAC-AG positions this year, and we sincerely hope that you consider applying. This is a really great opportunity to gain deeper insight into the work and priorities of both the CPUC and the Energy Commission, to have direct contact with decision makers and to be part of shaping our clean energy future. We're looking to build a diverse cohort of community leaders with a variety of subject matter expertise, backgrounds, and we want to make sure we have good geographic representation across the state as well. One thing I want to emphasize is that we're not just looking for energy experts, we're looking for community experts who are fluent in community needs, all of that work related to social and environmental justice, economic equity, community health. They're just some examples of the types of backgrounds that our DAC-AG members have. DAC-AG members meet monthly in hybrid meetings, and we're looking to add in more opportunities to gather in person as well. And so applications are currently due January 15th. But depending on the response we get, we may extend the call for another week or two. In your application, we're just looking for a CV, a letter of interest, of 2 pages or less explaining your background and how you think it would be beneficial to the DACAG. And then one letter of recommendation from someone in your community who can vouch for the type of contribution that you have. And so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm putting in both the DACAG email address, which is dac-ag@cpuc.ca.gov, and then the CPUC's DACAG webpage, which is where, if there's an extension for the call for apps, that's where it will be posted. Thank you, and
That
we
sounds
hope
like
you
a
apply.
tip. Maybe there'll be more time. Okay. Thank you, Zara. They're gonna, like I said, take some questions in the chat if you have any as well, and you can reach them over email as well. All right. So we're gonna go now to our next spotlight speaker. I hope you all have coffee, right? This is going quick. So Michael McCormick with Fairlawn Strategies. He's here to speak with the California Earthquake Authority, California Wildfire Fund's Natural Catastrophe Resilience Study and Opportunities. So go ahead, Michael, take it away.
Thank you so much, Angie. Hi, everybody. So great to be here today. So our team is working with the California Earthquake Authority on the Natural Catastrophe Resiliency Study. So we wanted to bring forward an opportunity to engage with CEA over the next month or 2 months on these work streams. So I want to go to the next slide. The basics of it is that there's a recognition that climate-fueled emergencies, natural catastrophes are happening more frequently. We all know that. Cost profile of those are going up as well. And there's a real need to reimagine how California manages risks longer term and even near term in many cases. So the legislature and the governor's office moved forward with wanting to understand the compendium of activities that have taken place over the last couple of years and put all of the ideas on the table about how we can reimagine risk moving forward. So one part of this is really balancing how we provide Californians with safe, affordable, reliable energy while maintaining our progress on climate goals, mitigating our harms, and then stabilizing our markets as well. There's equity in all of this as well that certainly needs to be considered across the board. Next slide. There are some specific directives and related to Senate Bill 254 that the Earthquake Authority has to get done. The short story is that by April 1st, we need a clear set of recommendations on new models or approaches that mitigate this damage, accelerate recovery, and responsibly and equitably allocate the burdens from natural catastrophes. Won't read the whole slide, but you'll be able to see this in the next couple of slides as well when Angie sends out the information. But it's an exciting opportunity for the state to get their arms around the work that needs to take place to balance all these different issues and perspectives. So next slide. This is, sorry, my formatting, I must have sent over the poorly formatted document. Sorry about that, Angie. But I'll send you a new one so that when it sends out, it'll be formatted properly. But this report is really about coming forward with some specific recommendations. There's 10 that were specifically called out in SB 254 that you can take a look at in more detail later. Many of us have talked about many of these things over the years. We know that there are issues. We know that we need creative solutions. And so this is the opportunity to really bring those creative solutions into a study so the legislature and the governor's office can consider how we move forward in the coming decades on managing risk. Next slide. So this team, based on the legislation and the executive, the governor's office's commitment to senior leadership to support the study and the outcomes of the study, is made up of the CEA executive team and key staff and the research team, along with a number of different work streams with collections of subject matter experts that are working very actively on catastrophic risk financing, property insurance, electric utilities, and risk reduction and financing. We're right in the middle phase of those chevrons and the workstream focus areas research, analysis, and drafting. And we will have opportunities coming up here for some public engagement as well as connecting on some of the themes that are emerging and then also the recommendations that are emerging. This is a really fast-paced process. I think most of you that have done engagement efforts and studies like this know that it can take many, many months, if not years, to produce a really meaningful document. This is an accelerated time frame, so we are looking for 2 workshops to come. And so if you want to get involved, now's the time for doing this. So why don't we move forward to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about the engagement that's happened to date. So the first webinar was on December 10th, and we really talked about the purpose of the study, really encouraged people to submit concept papers by December 12th, which was when the original concept papers were due. Those concept papers, which we've received approximately 60 of, are from a broad variety of organizations, many in California, a number of them nationally, and a few global organizations, representing some really interesting perspectives on how we might be able to manage catastrophic risk creatively and think about how we've done it in the past and improve upon those models moving forward. The next 2 webinars coming up is February 6th from 12 to 1, which is Friday, and then Friday, March 6th from 12 to 1 as well. Please put these on your calendar, show up. Long-term risk and resilience is a really important theme of this work, and it ties into the adaptation side of things. But it's also about institutionally, how do we manage this risk moving forward most effectively? So there's an alignment of stars that's needed as we come out of this process towards the study recommendations. So take a look here. Please do visit the website. I'll put that into the chat as well. Sign up for the webinars. Their signups are not quite up yet. Those should be coming in the next couple of days. But stay tuned for more and look forward to your engagement in those activities. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. Looks like we've got a question in the chat. If you could handle it there, that would be great. Love to encourage you guys to take advantage of these input opportunities and help shape some of these really important state level decisions, especially those of you interested in energy, the relationship between wildfire energy, affordability. You might be great to look at that. Okay, so we'll take a slightly slower pace now. We have 15 minutes or so to hear from our new friend, Jay Lopez. He's with both Cal OES and Cal Fire, and he's helping to run our California wildfire mitigation program. Like I said, it's a retrofit related program. So those of you that are working on residential retrofits, I wanted you to hear, because I know you're interested in climate resilient housing, I wanted you to hear that there's a program out here that can help build out those other kinds of improvements. So welcome, Jay, and you can take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me, Jay Lopez, as you mentioned. Let's go to the next slide. The California Wildfire Mitigation Program was created by AB 38 in 2019 and asked Cal Fire and Cal OES to form a joint powers authority, which I'm the chair of, that it was formed in 2021. And in mid-2022, the board was completed. I do have to say, starting this year, we added the California Department of Insurance to our board. So I will be reporting to Cal Fire, Cal OES, and California Department of Insurance as part of the board that manages the California Wildfire Mitigation Program Authority. We started with first 3 communities, and the first ones, the first grants that we got from FEMA were in June and August of 2023. Next slide. And the goal is for the authorities to develop a comprehensive wildfire mitigation program that encourages cost-effective wildfire hardening and defensible space, but not only at home here and there, at a neighborhood and community-wide level. Next slide. So the program vision is to have a robust model, because right now, if you go to John and Betty that are 75 years old and you tell them, go here's some money, harden your home, they're gonna say, what is it? Where do I start? But also to John and Betty that just got married and bought the new home, 25 years old, 30 years old, the same thing happens to them. So the whole idea is to have a robust program model that can be utilized not only by the communities, but also people that can do home hardening themselves. Like I said, this is our goal is for this pilot program is to do it at community and neighborhood level. But one part that is very important is locally led. So my team is only 5 of us, myself and 4 people that work with me. And we have on one side, Cal OES administers the grants for us. We have Cal Fire that provides materials and legislature and codes for the work that we do. And now we're going to have the Department of Insurance that's going to be another component to what we do. And we teach locally organizations that are locally working in the area. So in the case of Lake County, is the North Coast Opportunities. In the case of Shasta County, is the Shasta County Fire State Council. In the case of San Diego, is the San Diego County Fire Protection District. So we come up with the money for the match for the federal funds. They don't have to come up with it, which makes it very democratic. So you can have a fire state council all the way to a city or county being part of our program, and they don't have to deal with coming up with $2, $3, $5 million for the program to get going. Our program provides that funding. And it's targeting low-income, socially vulnerable homeowners in the areas that we work. Next slide. This is what we're looking at, having cluster hardening. The idea is to have, if not all those homes in that area done, but the majority of them. We know that the vulnerability against wildfire decreases with more homes being hardened, and there's defensible space and home hardening. As we have more homes hardened, the resiliency of the community increases. Next slide. So this is some of the areas that we're working in. Like I was saying, all those, and those are sub-recipients in the counties they're located, and the money, and when the period performance will end. So next slide. So methodology. So we went and create a foundation how to do this. So the hazard mitigation methodology by the National Institute of Standards and Technology provide a very good roadmap on what are the dangers and what are the hazards around a home that we can bring together. Yes, renters, we're working with renters as well. We haven't touched multifamily yet for this program. Next slide. So we do an assessor training. Like I said, we empower the local people to do this work. So we provide them very detailed training, and we also develop an assessment application. So these people go around the house, so around the structure, and it can be not only a house, can be any building that is within the area, because we know that the building that we don't touch is the building that can, if it catches on fire, can damage all of the other properties. So with the application, they look towards the house or towards the building, and they look away from it. And what is the hazard? Is it an open space? Is it another home that is only 15 feet away? We calculate all that to create a scope of work and a work order for a contractor to do. Next slide. So we do this as a defensible space. We do implement Zone 0, which is the 0 to 5 feet of the defensible space, and then Zone 1 and Zone 2, as is mandated by PRC 4291, locally, currently, and locally enforced by the local departments. Next slide. And then we have the retrofits. So I'm going to show you some examples. So some example retrofitting, for example, this goes right along what used to be Chapter 7A, now it's Part 7 of the building code, which is the 6 inches from the bottom up on the side of the home. If it's as a combustible side, like wood or other materials, we change those 6 inches. Actually, in our program, we go up 2 feet. And we also changed if it's a ground level, we put gravel or non-combustible material. And also if it's a deck, we also replace that first foot of combustible material away from the house. So that junction between the vertical and the horizontal plane where the embers collect is ember resistant. Next slide. So we couldn't do this without just having a roadmap. And the roadmap, we created minimum quality standards. And the minimum quality standards are closely related with the building codes and all the science behind why homes burn and how embers and flame penetrate the structures. So we have minimum quality standards for each one of those retrofits that we do. A quick example, we have the roof. You get the roof mitigations can be anything from just sweeping the leaves off the roof to replacing the roofs. So we have a quality standard to each one of them, partial replacement, what it needs to do, how it needs to be done, how the assembly of the roof needs to look like to comply with the latest building standards, Part 7 right now, starting 2026, is taking a home that it was built in previous decades to the like it would be a home that it was built currently. Next slide. So there's a link. When you get those slides, you'll be able to click on that and get in there. We into the minimum quality standards have been updated to include Part 7 instead of Chapter 7A. That is why it's 2.1. Next slide. So one of the things that it was very important for us to do is to align our program with other programs. So what we do for our program also helps the other, the property owner with other programs like the California Department of Insurance Safer from Wildfires program, which is Title 10 of the California Code of Regulations. So the benefits that they get from our program can transform into discounts or the ability to maintain insurance in their homes. Also, the wildfire prepared home from IVHS. We line up, what we do is our programs or the solutions that we put into the houses are aligned with IVHS wildfire prepared home. Also with the California Department of Housing and Community Development, they have their own program, Recover California, but we line up our programs to work the same way. Headwater Economics does studies in wildfire retrofits and provides reports, and our program is lined up with their work. Same thing with Firewise USA. And currently we're working with LCI to line up our programs. Next slide. So if this wasn't easy, so take us a little while, but it seemed impossible, but we're working on it. Next slide. So the challenges that we had is the FEMA allowable activities right now in the current agreement between Cal OES, the State Hazard Mitigation Officer, and FEMA. The only allowable activity is the installation of a spark arresters for FEMA projects. So you cannot put windows, you cannot put vents, siding. We work through all of those with FEMA that they're allowed, and we're hoping to have it in the next agreement. Contractors are great for new constructions, but it's a little difficult for contractors to understand retrofitting. So we're working with them. Building officials, there are no permitting processes you want to enclose your eaves currently. So we're working with those. Materials are not easily available. You have to special order them. So we're working with companies to get them available in any hardware store. And then also socially acceptable. You cannot just show up to a house and say, hey, I'm your neighbor, I'm here to retrofit your homes, give us the key, and we're gonna rip it up and put new stuff. It takes a little convincing to do that. So becoming socially acceptable has been a challenge. So we did something with FEMA, which called no issue parcels. So parcels that are less than 45 years old and parcels that are do not have any vegetation or animals that are in endangered species. They're allowed us to work on them right away, which is we had 10 months after we have the grant, we had our first home completed. We did 11 homes in 2024. And in 2025, we did 97 homes. So we're moving along. Batching, we also work with the contractors if their homes that are right next to each other to have 6-8 homes right next to each other so the contractor can work all homes at the same time. And then the allowable activities that I mentioned. Next slide, please. And there's some of the numbers right now. We have 108 homes completed to date. And as we speak, there's 35 homes being worked on. Next slide. And I'm just going to give you some examples right here. Next slide. So those are the treatments. Next slide. So this is zone 0, the removal of no vegetation material. Trees are permitted to zone 0. So the trees just need to be trimmed up 5 feet off the roof and 5 feet off the side, but on the bottom should be no combustible material. Next slide. This is one of the things that we do. We disconnect the wooden fence from the house. So we have 5 feet or a little more of non-combustible materials. That is what is touching the house. Next. This is also a fencing that it was wood before, metal after. Next. Trimming up the vegetation, in this case a tree away from the roof, very important. Next. This is just a view, a project in progress. This is zone 1, removal of quite a bit of vegetation in there. Next. This is what it looks like after the work is done. This is zone 1 away from the house. Next. And this is someone also by looking from the house out instead of from the house in, and left before, right after. Next. Installation of the screens, removal of combustible skirting is one thing that we do. Next. And we have special contractors that we train to do this work. Installation of flashing between the combustible material. Actually, that's pressure treated wood, and the wood that you see on the deck is also treated lumber against fire. Next. Also openings where the fire can work its way in, like an electrical panel or crawl space. Next. Propane tanks. In this case, this is San Diego County. They have propane tanks in the front. They used to have plants, and they used to have lattice and other combustible material. Now they have a metal enclosure for them, which is a lot safer. Next. And deck retrofits, very important to remove all that hazard where the embers and the flames cannot get underneath the deck. Next. Wildfire, flame and ember resistant vents on the bottom right, those steps and the siding on the wall on the right, they're non-combustible along with the gate. And then, in those roofs that are Spanish style, we cover that entrance of the embers in there. Next. And that's another example of retrofits on the left side of the 2 feet that we do of non-combustible material. And then on the right is a mesh. Well, oh, my time is up. The mesh is 16 of an inch mesh. Next. Again, another example of wall retrofits. Next. And disconnecting the deck, the burnable material, with 2 of those deck boards, non-combustible, but also the railing. We disconnect the railing with non-combustible material. Next. And then also vents, gable vents or foundation vents. We replace those with 16 of an inch or 8 of an inch. Next. And lastly, enclosed eaves, which is very important part. We enclose these with non-combustible materials or utilize the existing non-combustible materials to be part of the program. Next. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. What I like about that, well, 2 things. I want to congratulate you guys because all that coordination among agencies is difficult, and we really want to thank you for doing it because on the ground we hear a lot about how these siloed programs are hard. So the more that you're trying to work among federal and state agencies is really appreciated. I think you said maybe there. I know that the Safe Home programs was recently legislated, goes into effect just in January. Is that part of what you'll be doing too? Or coordinating among the Safe Home? It's the Department of Insurance.
Yes, the Department of Insurance is being added to our board. And one thing is that we do, and we already doing that. So we have some property owners that have that we finish, we give them a report at the end, they take it to the insurance company, and they have been able to maintain the insurance, and some of them have gotten some considerable discounts based on that. And also working with the IBHS and giving a wildfire prepared home status to them. So the certificate or the designation to their home will allow them to maintain insurance or be able to actually shop around, because now you have a home that is prepared. It's like being a good driver. You're going to get better insurance if you do the work to become more resilient.
Well, I also like that folks get a little window into what it looks like to do a resilient home retrofit. Most of us, like I said, are doing the decarbonization side of the house and are thinking about how to do both at once. I'm going to go to the questions in the chat, but one more question that I have for you is just, have you seen it done where folks are, if you get into a home, people want to do as much sometimes as they can, although that gets cost prohibitive. Have you seen folks try to incorporate the solar storage, battery or other efficiency or electrification retrofits at the same time?
Yes, well, actually, I use myself as an example. I had to retrofit my home. My home is against the mountains, which is the backyard behind me in here. And the roof needed to be replaced. This was a great opportunity to install insulation on the home. And the insulation has created quite a bit of savings in the summer and winter time with heating and cooling, having a very nice, robust insulation in there. From there, another neighbor of mine, she incorporated a battery bank and solar panels after the roof was remodeled, and is working fantastic in there. In a lot of these communities, power is something that we lose with the public power shut off, and if the power is going to be lost, having a bank of batteries can really help you.
There's another question here in the chat. It's talking about prospective emissions of the program and talking about tree and plant removal. Are there any plans to ensure that there are carbon sinks built somewhere else to avoid increase of emissions in these communities?
Yeah, this is mostly in the first 5 feet where we do the work, and we do just remove the excess vegetation. We stay away from removing large trees. We want shade. Maintaining the shade in the place is very important, especially some of those rural areas. Air conditioning sometimes is non-existent or is not something that they can afford to run all the time. So shade is very important. So it's just within the first 100 feet of the house, which is mandated by PRC 4291, or the proper line, whatever is closer. So we're just enhancing the defensible space that they are mandated to keep by the PRC 4291.
Thank you. There are folks, I think a lot of us probably would love to share this information with communities. And I know you have a limited number of jurisdictions that you're currently in. Can you tell us more about the plan? Are you going to scale up? Are you going to go into other communities? Is there opportunities for us to engage in influencing that process?
So we get our funding from the state, and we get a special bill. In this case was State Bill 85 in 2020. We hope to get more. The pilot program is slated to finish in 2029. However, there's a couple of bills being worked on. One was last year to extend us permanently. As we become permanent, then we can open up. We get out of the pilot phase and open it up throughout the state. And we have a list of counties that is on our website, a list of counties that the governor's office wanted us to follow, but that counties have high social vulnerability and also wildfire threat. And we have it listed in there. So we're making our way down that list. Our goal is to get out of this phase. So I know there's a couple of bills coming up making us permanent. Once we're permanent, then we can do it statewide.
Okay, well, I'm gonna need to move us to our final speaker, but there are a couple more questions in the chat if you want to handle those, Jay. Everybody give us some emojis or whatever you do virtually to say thank you to Jay for bringing this program to us. I do like us kind of building bridges here, a little over to the resilience world, but it certainly has a relationship to a lot of your work.
Thank you
All
for having
right,
me.
thank you, Jay. That was great. Okay. So Misty is here, Misty Bruceri. If you don't already participate in her California Local Energy Codes monthly meetings, you totally should, and you should email her and get it on their list. But she's going to give us some updates, some sort of timely updates all around codes and every a quick overview of some of the things you might need to know. Thanks, Misty.
Thank you very much, Angie. And Jay, you're a hard act to follow, I have to say. Even I would rather listen to you and look at some of those hardening pictures and how you do it. Now I get to talk about codes now. Yours is much more interesting. Thank you very much for that presentation, though. It was very interesting. Anyways, Angie asked me to come talk today. My name is Misty Bruceri, and I'm the coordinator for the Local Energy Codes program. Angie asked me to come give you kind of a quick review of some of the kind of recent events in codes and standards lately. This is a fairly short presentation, so I'm going to skip kind of over the top of all of these things, but I'm going to just quickly review some of the changes in the 2025 building codes, a couple of potential opportunities that are out there for REACH codes, and also some recent federal activity that we all probably want to be aware of. Okay, so moving into the building codes, probably hard to miss talk of the 2025 building code changing, but it was adopted last year, and we now have a new building code. That's all of the entire building code. Came effective on January 1st, 2026. Typically, there's a 3-year code cycle, but you may have heard some of the changes because of AB 130. The residential standards will now be on this cycle will be a 6-year cycle, so they won't change in 2028. Non-res will still be on the same 3-year code cycle. Code, as I said, became effective on 1/1, and for those of you that are primarily interested in electrification, the new construction part of the code goes very far towards that end now. It almost really is entirely electric baselines for most space and water heating. And I'm talking about the regulated loads. Of course, things like cooking and close drying are not part of this, just the code regulated uses. So for single family, the code assumes that both space and water heating are heat pumps, and you are still allowed to install a furnace. However, because a furnace is inherently less efficient than a heat pump, you'll be penalized from a compliance perspective. And so then you're going to have to make up that loss of efficiency in order to comply with the code. So gas is still allowed, but we assume that you're going to install a much more efficient heat pump to start with. So you're going to have to make up for some penalties if you do that. There's one place in the code that is not, does not have an electric baseline for new construction that is pretty significant, and that is for new multifamily buildings. When there's a central water heating system, it can be either gas or electricity right now. And so we are just about to wrap up an analysis. We're working on getting it wrapped up right now. The team was just about finished and saw they found an error, and so they're getting that fixed. And that analysis actually looks at ways that you can encourage electrification for those systems as well. All that said, there are still many opportunities for efficiency improvements about the code, kind of going back to our traditional REACH codes. And so I encourage you to take a look at those. We just are in the process of releasing the single family new construction study and are finding we're getting margins of between 5 and 10% cost effectively above the state code requirement, which would give somebody that wants to install a gas unit just that extra bar that they'd have to perform even better. So they'd have to make up the compliance penalty and then go beyond a little bit. Well, all electric homes would just have to do that little bit of a go beyond. So it's kind of, it encourages all electric installation. but using efficiency as the way to do that. Next slide, please. What we're really seeing are the huge opportunity that is out there right now really is in existing buildings. It always has been, but we're really seeing it happening there now because of the new construction code just going so far. We're finding those increments are getting smaller and smaller on the new construction side. Existing buildings, however, there's still a huge range of buildings out there. There's several different opportunities for reach codes. You could do something like we call our flex path, which basically is a policy that requires people to meet a certain performance level if they do a remodel. There's also the AC to heat pump policy. That's when people change out their AC, you encourage them to install a heat pump. No mandates in any of these. They're all just encouraging folks by the structure of the policy. And I'm sure that many of you have heard of what is a very promising policy option, the building performance standards. That is something there's a whole lot of activity going on in the state right now and a whole lot of support for jurisdictions that are beginning to investigate these kinds of standards. They're primarily for larger non-residential buildings, and the idea is that you set a particular performance level and then give people time to get to that. It's usually a very long-term look at performance, though. This is it's a more aggressive stance, trying to get to zero net carbon often. At some point, usually looking at like 2045 or 2050. So you're looking at equipment life cycles and things like that. So the difference there is really kind of our traditional reach codes. While they're not as aggressive, they are based on existing processes and things like that. They're just an incremental change, and they'll produce savings within the next couple of years. BPS is likely to produce a lot more savings over time, but it is going to take time to get there. You're probably not going to see anything in the next few years because you usually start with benchmarking and then the requirements build over time. So that's just something to keep in mind. We have resources for all of these type of reach codes on our website here. I've got the link here. And we also include a link here to the state agency resources. Both the CBSC and CEC produce materials to help you get through that process. They're both very willing to provide support, as Angie mentioned, and both are also very inundated at the moment because of all the different adoptions across the state. So they're willing, but it takes a little bit of time. If you want support from them, make sure that you give them time. And so folks have been wondering what jurisdictions are doing because of AB 130. AB 130 was the state assembly bill that was adopted last year that basically put a moratorium on changes to the residential standards. Thankfully, right before it was adopted, a couple of exceptions showed up, and one of them we refer to as Exception 5. You may have heard of it. It's the fifth exception in the bill, and it allows jurisdictions to move forward if you have an adopted general plan that if the ordinance would be necessary, to implement an adopted general plan. There's some other requirements there, but for the most part, most jurisdictions are using this exception and moving forward as they normally would. There's no real additional requirements except for some language that you need to include in your documentation to acknowledge that you are complying with it.
Hey,
So all those resources are available. No problem.
Hey, Misty, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to pop in just to close out our official 1 hour meeting. Would you mind if we continue you into the bonus breakout and we'll have folks, I know there's going to be questions around this. There's so much more to talk about on codes. So stick around, everybody. That's why we booked you all till 12:15. But if we can go to our Seek slide, we just wanted to put in a little plug before we close out here on our call for session proposal. So I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey on the Seek team.
Hi, everybody. I hope you all saw this already, but our call for session proposals process is now open until February 6th to submit a proposal to have a session at the forum in LA. We do hope that you all will share with us, what you've been working on this year, what's new, We want to hear from everybody and really get a good program this year. So please submit a proposal. You can, we'll send the link here. You can also just go to our website. Additionally, if you have any specific questions, we're going to have office hours every Friday, I believe at 11 a.m. You can also see on our website the link to that. So just pop in, share with us what you are interested in proposing, and we can walk through any questions that you might have. So hope to see some good proposals.
We're gonna have another good session, I think, forum this year, and I'm hoping we break more records. We got a lot of session proposals last year, and it helped us really learn a lot about what's going on around the state. So, all right, please submit. I'm just gonna close out the formal session before we do our informal bit by saying thanks for being here as always. Gosh, this was a good crowd. That's a lot of information to start your year off with, but I hope it helps you feel like there's opportunity out there for you. And there's a lot of ways to continue to move this work forward. The work you're doing is critical, and we're honored to help you do it. So our next meeting is on the 10th. We're actually going to be talking about a LERN program, but if you have other ideas for kinds of things you want to hear about, always send it our way or send this invitation to a friend that you think could benefit. And we'll see you next time if you have to leave. But otherwise, stick around we're going to shut off the cameras. We can scream into the abyss if we want about all the things, but this is our informal 15-minute bonus breakout. We'll go to the next slide where you can make any kind of announcement, ask a question. Sometimes people want to share something into the hive mind. Hey, is anybody else thinking about this? Or is anybody doing coordination around this? That'll be up to you. If you have something you want to share, please do. We love to have this sort of open conversation, period. But before we get to that, let's let Misty finish a couple of slides here and take a couple questions on codes, because there are some things y'all want to know about it.
There are a couple that are coming up. Indeed. Thank you, Angie. And I second your call for proposals on the SEEK forum. It is my favorite conference ever. And I've been doing this a long time. I go every year. It's a wonderful conference. Highly recommend it. Okay. So back to the resources, there are a lot of opportunities. And like I said, pretty much if you have a general plan that went through a formal approval process, you pretty much can go through with your REACH code. If you have something that you're looking at, it's very likely that you can move forward. There are some other requirements, like you must comply with EPCA, which is the Energy Policy Conservation Act, the federal requirements. So you can't ban gas or something like that, but there's nothing really all that challenging as far as getting through that exception 5. It's really quite straightforward, actually. As it turns out, we got lucky. And so we can keep moving. As far as BPS, I did want to let you know that for folks, go ahead and change that. Yep, you were right on. I wanted to let everybody know that I know there's a lot of jurisdictions out there that are looking kind of at your initial analysis and starting to look at these policies. And we have this tool in our Cost Effectiveness Explorer that can help you start that analysis. It's got non-residential building stock broken down by so many different metrics. It's something, if you like things like this, you can get lost in because you can look at it by size, by fuel type, by emissions, all different kinds of things. You can look at all the different types of buildings in your city, and it really will help you get started on, getting some idea, getting your arms around what would a BPS look like for our city? How many buildings are we looking at? What types? Things like that. So encourage you to use that. I got the link on the slide there if you'd like. Next slide, please. And then these are the kind of the two federal things that Angie had mentioned have happened in the past week or so. First off, the U.S. government sued Morgan Hill and the city of Petaluma this year. About last week they filed. Basically, we were really concerned about this at first, but as you look a little bit more closely, one of the things that we have figured out here is that there doesn't appear to be an expansion in scope with this lawsuit for what they're looking at. Both of these ordinances were actually almost kind of carbon copies of Berkeley's ordinance. And so they were that same municipal, all-electric, new construction ordinance style. And So the federal government has sued both Morgan Hill and Petaluma. And the thing that is really different here is that typically the government doesn't sue to enforce these kinds of things. They typically contact the city and go about it in a much different way. So this is a little bit unusual that there's a lawsuit. There's a lot of speculation about what that might mean, but nobody really knows for sure. It may mean nothing. It may mean that's just the choice that they made. If you are having any difficulty, or if you have any questions, or your attorney has any questions about this, there is legal technical assistance available for free, actually, through the Public Health Law Center at Mitchell Hamline School of Law. That assistance is available to local government staff, advocates, and nonprofits. Of course, there are limits on what they can provide for free, but if that is something you need, please contact Daniel Carpenter Gold here, and I've got his email. There's also a wonderful tracker that the Public Health Law Center maintains for all of the kind of climate-related litigation that we hear about, including these two lawsuits, the lawsuits that have been happening in New York and Denver. They're all on there. And so you can get a really good idea of what's happening with the different legislation or different litigation. Excuse me. At this point, there's more questions than answers. Both cities have made statements, but neither has indicated what they plan to do to respond to the lawsuit yet. So we're still just kind of in a waiting mode right now on this one. Okay, next slide. And lastly, this one may be a little bit more concerning. This is in the Federal House of Representatives. It's called the Energy Choice Act. And other than the name of the act, this is the entire text. And that's why I put it on here. I normally wouldn't put this much text on a slide, but this is the act. This is what they're saying. What is concerning is if you start reading it here is that it would limit both a state and local government. And when you from implementing, enforcing any law, and this is where it gets a little concerning, regulation, ordinance, building code, standard, or policy that prohibits or limits or directly or indirectly prohibits or limits, basically gas. It's related to all of these other fuels as well, but the motivation for this was gas bans. There's a lot of concern about this potential. It could have a serious impact on both state and local ability to do a lot of safety policies and things like that. It has passed out of the House's Energy and Commerce Committee, primarily supported by Republicans, though there were 3 Democrats that supported it. And so it was I think 147 and 3. So there were 3 Democrats that supported this. If this does pass out of the House and goes to the Senate, it will require 60 votes. So there's some possibility that it's going to be a much harder lift in the Senate than it will be here. It is kind of zooming its way through the House right now. And so that's something that we're keeping an eye on. But this may be something that you might want to make some of your leadership a bit aware of, because it really could have serious impact on local control. And that'll do it for me today. Thanks. And thanks for staying extra. I so appreciate it. That's very sweet.
Misty. Yeah, no, that was good. I feel reassured just knowing there's a Misty Bursary out in the world tracking all things codes and keeping us informed. You should put your email address, Misty, in the chat for folks that want to contact you to get on your monthly list. Oh,
I will do that. And I also wanted to just quickly, if I could say, I know I went through these things very quickly. If you are interested in talking more about them or in more detail, I'm happy to talk with any of you about it more. So just give me an email and we can set something up.
I do see a couple questions for you, Misty. One is, are there resources available to help folks navigate new heat pump water heater space heating requirements from a permitting perspective?
From a permitting perspective, we don't have anything for permit right now. We do all we really have is a checklist right now. I think that there are some efforts underway, though. I know that BayREN is looking at some permitting opportunities and getting things streamlined. So our program does not have efforts, but I would recommend giving BayREN a call. I know that they're looking at some opportunities, but I don't know specifics. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if the IREN person was still around, but that's okay. That's useful to know. There's a BayREN contact there. Let's see. I see a hand, right? Mark, was that you? Do you want to say something out loud here?
Oh, I just typed the question, but yeah. So Misty, for that last piece of federal legislation, um, do you see that affecting more so reach codes, or would it affect state and local ordinances related to building performance standards? Is it like a broadly interpreted language where if it's anything that's going to reduce gas emissions? I didn't catch the detailed language, but do you have a just a quick outlook on the impacts for California at the state level and local governments, if that's possible, like a 30-second? What should we watch out for?
I know that there's a lot of concern, Mark. The language is very broad, and that's where the concern is coming from. It is, directly or indirectly prohibiting or limiting the connection. You know what I mean? So they don't even just say prohibit the connection. It's prohibit or limit, direct or indirect. So that language is very broad and concerning. I don't know exactly how big the implications could be, but I know that there's a lot of concern about that and about building codes and reach codes as well, and how that might limit things.
Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. Angie, if possible, we should maybe follow up with like Kate at Climate Mayors and even
Yeah.
C40 for their weight and others, because I'm sure other states are going to be very concerned about this, and
Yeah.
we can likely pull together a very influential team here, including the ACEEE national and whatnot. And I'm sure Misty, you're plugged into that, so let's all like band up and do something about it.
Let's do that. I agree. Yeah, I don't follow all of these things super closely myself. So yeah, I know that you guys have some legislative folks that actually follow them a little bit more closely than I do as it moves its way
Not
through.
related to Seek. We're going to be collecting some policy concepts, so community-driven policy concepts for Civic Wells doing a policy bridge. So, Mark, I know you're involved in that. That could be, we could think about what would I don't know what the state would do to combat it, but what could the state of California do?
Right. So there's like NASIO, right? There's a ton of
Yeah.
people that would activate, which we haven't really done on the federal level in this group. So that could be
Mhm.
something worthwhile.
Love it. Thanks, Mark. There was another question here. Actually, Iren, I see you. You can take yourself off mute. Oh, hello.
Hello. Yes. Yeah, I was just following up to ask Misty if there was a link to that checklist. We do coordinate with the other RENs. We have a class upcoming on heat pump water heaters on Thursday, and I was just kind of looking to see what currently exists and any extra resources we can provide to folks, and also make sure that we're not, duplicating efforts if there's resources that have already been developed and are out there.
I don't have a link just yet. I apologize. Can you drop your email in the chat?
Absolutely.
We're just getting it finalized. It's just getting ready to post. That's what I'm doing this afternoon. So you're just a little ahead of me. But if you drop your email, I will send it over to you.
Perfect.
I did want to
Thank you.
let folks know that there was a webinar on HR 3699 given by the Public Health Law Center, and they have a link for their archives here. I dropped that in the chat for you. So Mark, you may be interested in that. I would highly recommend taking a look at that.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to find it. There was one more question I wanted to hit for you on. Here we go. It's from Patrick Carter, and I'm not sure he's still here, but he's asking, would the general plan need to have been adopted before a certain date, or could general plans adopted in 2026 and beyond still be relied upon for exception 5?
No, it was adopted by June. It was June 2025. I believe it's June 10th is the date. I'd have to confirm the exact date, but it was June 2025. Now, there are, though, we've heard from some lawyers that are involved in these kinds of things and pretty progressive thinkers, and they believe that you could adopt a resolution. It does not have to be your general plan, but that you could adopt a new resolution and then refer to that as well. I suspect that's probably not quite as clean because it isn't the exact reference in the code, but there are possibilities for using new things that are adopted now. So.
Okay, well, that I think covers the questions that have come up, and I didn't see anything new proposed. Oh, good, Patrick, you are still here, so you got your answer. I see a floating thumb. I think that covers it. Normally, we leave a little open space for other topics to arise, but let's meet again next month. I think we're going to have plenty to talk about all year long and lots to do. So thanks everybody for keeping at it. We'll see you again in February.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here, Misty, and all of our speakers.